almost live from the Herbert I. Greenberg Studios at WHIG. It's Up Late with Sam Bass.
Thank you, Scott Smith, and welcome to the show. Hey, I want to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsor, First Class Real Estate Triangle East. Folks, if you're looking for a realtor, they should be your first choice. See what I did there? Smart. And if you're in need of any kind of maintenance work like electricians, plumbing, heating, any kind of general repairs, call my good friends over at Metro Maintenance. Tonight I want to recognize one of their guys, Donnie Brown. Donnie is a plumber. He's got over 30 years of experience. Donnie is known as the best plumber in town. If you've got a plumbing issue, call Metro Maintenance, get up with Donnie. So, tonight, we have a special guest. The Tar Heel Traveler himself, Scott Mason, is here live tonight. You know him from the show on WRAL, and he's also written a book or two or three or five, and he's also won more than 100 journalism awards and multiple regional Emmys as well. So how many now do we have for that, Jamie? Sandra? What's our total count? None? Okay, so I'm feeling a little bit insecure. I've got award envy. So let me fuel up with a little bit of liquid courage before we bring Scott out. Cheers. Well, Scott has traveled to a lot of interesting places in North Carolina, all over the state. He's eaten a lot of good food, and now he's finally journeyed here. He's sitting in our green room right now. And if you could see this inside of the fridge in the green room, trust me, it would be an interesting place. It probably wouldn't be anything you'd want to eat in there. I don't know. I don't think it's going to make an episode of Tar Heel Traveler. We'll see, but I'm guessing no. So, you know, I like to travel a lot myself, and particularly like to time travel whenever I can get my hands on a time machine, which is kind of hard to find these days. But I do have a few pictures here of the times I did travel in a time machine, my 5 favorite places. Here is number 1. I went to, believe it or not, folks, I went to ancient Rome. It's cool to see gladiators and the Colosseum and all that stuff, but you know, I just wanted to wear a toga, so I could be like John Belushi on Animal House. You know, toga, toga. Number 4, Woodstock, 1969, a great year. Now, believe it or not, I was only a kid at that time at the original, not the second Woodstock, the original. When it happened, I missed all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and the rain. So I couldn't resist the chance to go back as an adult and play in the mud a little bit. Number 3, here's another one from that great year, 1969, August 8th, as a matter of fact, when the Beatles all gathered together for the famous Abbey Road shot, crossing the Abbey Road. You know, I couldn't pass up the chance to show up on my elf costume and lead the charge. Number 2, Frank Sinatra's 80th birthday party. You guys, if you watch this show, you know that I'm a huge Sinatra fan. This was a gigantic party thrown in honor of the chairman of the board himself. Tony Bennett was there, Bob Dylan was there, Ray Charles was there, Tom Selleck, Magnum P.I., he was there. Don Rickles actually insulted me at this party. As you can see in the picture, here I am, right in the middle, as usual, the life of the party. And my number 1 place to travel via my time machine is back to when I first poured my drink. So that way the glass is never empty. That's the magic of television, folks, right here. I'm the, what everybody calls the glass always full kind of guy. That's me.
Metro Maintenance has provided fast, reliable services in Nash, Edgecombe, and Halifax counties for over 35 years. Metro Maintenance offers services for residential, commercial, and institutional facilities. These services include heating and cooling, electrical, plumbing, and general repairs. Our numerous years of experience, knowledge, and resources help us to accomplish our mission of serving our customers with superior service achieved through integrity and hard work. All of our work is guaranteed. For service, call 252-977-2730 or find us on the web at metro-maintenance.com. First Class Real Estate Triangle East. When buying or selling a property, think of us first.
We are back with the man himself, Scott Mason, right here in person. The Tar Heel Traveler. Thank you so much for being here, Scott.
Well, glad to be here, Sam.
So, the first thing I'm going to get to, I'm going to talk about all these books you have. Kind of lead me through what you've written.
Well, I've actually written, my 6th book will come out this fall. So I can't believe I've written that many books. But,
impressive.
I've always loved to write. Even as a kid, it just came natural to me. I'd come home from school and write short stories and poems, and the writing is what kind of propelled me into journalism. But, I kind of got away from creative writing when I went into journalism, covering day-to-day news. And then, probably 15 years ago, I began sort of writing again. I had always sort of dabbled in it, but writing poems and short stories. And people, when the Tar Heel Traveler debuted in 2007, a short time later, people kept emailing me saying, "You need to write a book about all these people you've met and places you've been." And so I did, and I began writing about some of my favorite stories, but what I really was writing about was the stories behind the stories, all these crazy things that have happened to us on the road. And so I've written books about my favorite stories, I've written books about restaurants, I have one book about all these miracles that people told me about, and then the book that comes out this fall is one just about these unique places in North Carolina, 201 of them.
Wow. Are you originally a North Carolina guy from here?
Well, I was born in Raleigh. My parents sort of started their lives in Raleigh. My mom grew up in Richmond, Virginia. My dad went to University of Virginia, and my dad got a job in Raleigh, and so I was born there at the old Rex Hospital. But then when I was a little boy, my dad was transferred to Massachusetts. He was in insurance at the time, so I actually grew up right on the coast of Massachusetts, which is really strange because here I'm growing up outside of Boston and my mom has this real southern accent and I'm eating grits and barbecue and collards and all this southern food, and I can't tell you how many times my friends would come over. My mom would have a bowl of grits for them and they'd put milk and sugar on it thinking it was oatmeal.
Yeah, they eat hominy or something.
That's right.
Up there. But I know you did some book signings. I saw you one time at Smith's Red and White, which is close here. Are you still doing that from time to time?
Oh, I do book signings all the time, and Smith's is a great place. I've done several book signings there. Really a nice family. It's such
a throwback grocery store.
It is, and the restaurant's fantastic. I love Beth. Beth is the manager there. She's great. I give her a hug every time I see her.
So you've been doing the Tar Heel Traveler since 2007?
Yeah, we're about to finish up our 17th season.
Wow.
We've done more than 2,500 stories in that time. In fact, I keep a running tally, and we're right at 2,600. So
I'm thinking you probably get a lot of emails, but how do you pick the stories for all these shows?
Well, that's the thing. When we first started the Tar Heel Traveler, we were actually on 5 nights a week for the first year. Now we're on 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. And at the beginning, I was thinking, well, am I going to have enough material to fill all those slots night after night, week after week, year after year? Well, 17 years into it, I am inundated with story ideas. I bet I have 10,000 story ideas. That's really no exaggeration. Close to 10,000 story ideas that I haven't even gotten to yet.
Wow.
And most people, I gather them mainly through emails. People will, it's not unusual for me to receive 4 emails a day from people suggesting story ideas. But then other times we'll be on a story And in the course of shooting that story, we'll hear about 2 or 3 other stories, and I make little notes and put them in my file. So the story ideas are really easy. You know, one of my idols is Charles Kuralt, the old CBS newsman. He said, I remember Kuralt once said, you know, all you really have to do to find a story is look out the window. And that's pretty much how it is.
So, I know you've done some stuff in Rocky Mount. Off the top of your head, can you recall any places in Rocky Mount that you've featured on Tar Heel Traveler?
Well, you know, we mentioned Smith's Red and White. I did a story there. I did the story on the Smith's restaurant, Imperial Cleaners, the Dry Cleaners, a great older couple that runs that. I've done a gazillion stories. There's the house, this family lives in this house, and the house was in this major motion picture, like back in the 50s. It was famous, Clark Gable, I think. Or maybe it was Cary Grant was in the movie. And this house that was in the movie is here in Rocky Mount.
Wow,
and, yeah,
I never knew that.
And,
I have to go back and find that episode.
I know, and then I did a story on the mural artist. She was drawing some mural here in Rocky Mount. Oh, I've done, a gazillion stories.
Well, we've got a new mural. You need to check it out.
Oh, okay.
We're not supposed to say check it out on this show, but I'm just saying that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think my wife was the one that gave the idea that originally ended up for Imperial Cleaners. So I'm going to give her credit for that.
All right.
Marty, this is for you. She got credit for that, so she gave the idea to somebody that passed it on to you.
Well,
but it's a great story.
I'm glad she did, because my daughter got married a year or 2 ago, and my wife's been telling me, I've got this, you need to get her wedding dress cleaned. You have to take it to the place in Rocky Mount.
That's the place to do it, for sure.
Yeah.
So you've met a lot of memorable characters while you've been doing the show. Is there anyone in particular that pops in your head?
Yeah, well, with 2,500, 2,600 stories, that's a lot of people, but people ask me that question all the time. Of all those 2,500 stories, what's your favorite? And believe it or not, I would say my most memorable Tar Heel Traveler story and person is the very first Tar Heel Traveler we ever shot. I mean, the very first one right out of the gate. It was in August of 2007. And it was about this man from Chapel Hill.
I knew it.
Yeah, he was a landscaper, probably in his mid-60s. His name was Marty. And I met him at Sutton's on Franklin Street. Sutton's is like a pharmacy with one of those old-fashioned soda fountains, you know, and he would eat breakfast every morning at Sutton's. And I didn't have Marty's phone number, and so I called the guy at Sutton's and I said, hey, you think we can go interview Marty? And he said, oh, yeah, why don't you come tomorrow? Marty will be here. He'd love to be interviewed. So the photographer and I show up to Sutton's the next morning, and in walks Marty, and he didn't want anything to do with that camera. And so I actually sat down and had breakfast with him, and I think that surprised him that I was, you know, willing to take my time and hear his story. And what his story is he was born without any arms. Right. And so there he is eating breakfast at Sutton's with his feet. And you know, after a while, he wouldn't stop talking. He was telling me all about his life, and he had obviously a very challenging life, but he got so excited that after breakfast he said, come on. And I follow him to his big blue van, and he opens the door with his feet, and he gets in, and there we are riding down Franklin Street, man without any arms driving with his feet. And then he stops and he pulls out his chainsaw and starts chainsawing a tree with his feet and mowing the lawn. And believe it or not, I mean, we spent much of the day with him, and I know this is going to be hard to believe when I say it, but after a while, I forgot he didn't have any arms. I mean, he had such a great personality, and so I think about Marty often.
Yeah, and I kind of already knew that when I asked the question.
Yeah.
Because I remember that story. It's an incredible story. There used to be a guy from Sharpsburg who lost both legs in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And did everything. He could do anything any other man could do.
Right.
With just the arms.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, the gentleman you're speaking of has passed away since then.
Well, yeah, there's quite a twist to his story. In fact, when I began writing my first Tar Heel Traveler book, the one with the mountain cover on it, I begin the book with Marty's story. And it was 3 months to the day after we interviewed him that he was, his van was struck by a logging truck, and
no.
he was killed.
Oh, that's terrible.
So 3 months later, we did a follow-up story and interviewed the folks at Sutton's, and yeah, such a shame. That was Marty's last interview.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about scary places. What do you think the scariest place you've ever visited is?
Well, I have sort of an unusual story about that. When WRAL first hired me in 1997, they hired me to do documentaries, and so I had always been in front of the camera, but I accepted a role behind the camera to produce these documentaries, and then the anchormen would front the documentary. Well, one of my first assignments was the hunt for Eric Rudolph. He was he had blown up all these abortion clinics.
He was like a real life Rambo type character.
Exactly, and he escaped into the mountains of North Carolina. So one of my very first assignments, I mean, I spent with the photographer, and I spent weeks in around the Nantahala area, around Andrews, North Carolina, Murphy. And, it was like October, November, December, January. So, no leaves on the trees, and we'd be traveling, going to interviews, and I'm looking out the window, seeing, do I see Eric out there? And we were interviewing these skinheads and really radical people, because that was all sort of part of the story. People who didn't trust the government, and oh my gosh, I had some really. There was one interview with this really radical guy, and we wanted to interview him for the documentary, and he said, "Well, let me talk to you first." And so he had us sit down, and he had 3 other people in the room, and I swear they didn't even blink. They just sat there motionless for 2 hours while this man ranted and raved, and he's talking about conspiracy theories. And I mean, I thought, this guy could kill us. We're out in the middle of nowhere and nobody would know. And
Wow.
And then after the 2 hours of ranting and raving, he said, I changed my mind. I don't want to be interviewed.
Thanks a lot.
That's kind of, that's probably not your typical, you probably didn't think I would say that, but
Right.
At the time, those North Carolina mountains were the scariest place I've been.
So that was scary in another way than being spooky. so to speak.
Exactly.
So I want to go back to all the awards I've mentioned earlier that you've won. You did a documentary on the Cape Light Away from the Edge.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually did 2 documentaries on the moving of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. The first one was on all the controversy surrounding that. Should we keep the lighthouse where it is, right near the ocean, or should we move it out of harm's way? And that first one was an hour long, which I thought was fascinating. You talk about great characters. we just found some great characters. And then the second one was the actual move. And that was quite a production on the part of WRAL. They would assign a photographer, they would send a photographer for 1 week to Cape Hatteras, and they rented a house, and the photographer would just stay there for a week and document whatever was happening, because there was constant work going on in preparing for the move. And then that photographer would leave, another photographer would come back. Well, obviously they're shooting gobs and gobs of video, and little old me is back in the edit room going through all that video and weaving the whole thing together on paper. And yeah, that was an hour-long documentary, and it was fortunate to win many awards. And it was you talk about a team effort, that was the full team.
Was it streaming where people could go watch it now?
Yeah, I think if you, like most things, and with Tar Heel Traveler stories too, the easiest way is just to Google Tar Heel Traveler Imperial Cleaners, or in this case, WREL Away from the Edge, or WREL Cape Hatteras Lighthouse documentary.
One other thing, this is not in my script, but I just remembered that you interviewed Milton the Golden Platter Bullock.
I did.
In Rocky Mountain. He just recently passed away.
Did he really? That's
and I know
a shame.
he was singing in the train station, and that's our offices are in the train station.
Yeah, Milton was great. You know, he was one of the main members of the Platters, and had a great voice.
Such a good guy too.
Yeah,
really good guy.
I think every other week he sang at the train depot.
He did.
Yeah.
So, what do you do in your downtime? Do you like to just travel for fun? What do you do when you're not out on the road?
Well, several things. I grew up racing sailboats since I was on the coast of Massachusetts. So yeah, so as a kid, I sailed a lot every single weekend of my youth. I was out on the water. I played a lot of tennis tournaments, and I still play a lot of tennis.
You don't play pickleball, do you?
Some. I haven't gotten into it quite yet. Yeah.
Leave it there.
But
we are anti-pickleball around here.
Okay, all
Go
right. But yeah, so I still play a lot of tennis, and I'm on leagues and all. But one of my great passions is I play ice hockey. I play for the past 20 years. I've been playing ice hockey just about once a week. It's a men's league. It's it's fun, and but it's competitive too, and that's great. I love it. I sit on the bench and I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm playing ice hockey. And,
that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what is do you have a favorite way to travel? Is it plane, trains, or automobiles? Have you ever run into John Candy?
No.
Have you ever taken a time machine anywhere?
No. No, I love any method of travel. I felt like if I wasn't a reporter or a writer, that I would be a truck driver. I always wanted to be a truck driver. I just, and I love listening to audiobooks and radio. And I don't need a lot I can entertain myself. I enjoy, just seeing the sights. I always loved taking the train. As a kid, we sometimes took the train from Massachusetts to my grandparents' house in Richmond. And a couple of times it was an overnight train. I love that. I still love taking a train. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I really do enjoy traveling. My wife and I just got back from the Caribbean. That was a great trip. And then a year ago we went to Paris. And I want to do more overseas travel. I went with a couple of my kids. My son was studying in Florence, Italy, and so one of my daughters and I flew to Milan, met him in Milan, and we took the train to Switzerland and skied at St. Moritz.
Gosh.
I love skiing, and here you are skiing in the Swiss Alps. That was amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Of course, I love eating too. There were some good meals.
Well, you've written books on it.
Yeah, I have.
So I want to switch gears really quick because we're right in the middle of the NCAA basketball tournament. Is there any particular team that you follow or you want to go far into the tournament?
Well, I pull for all the North Carolina teams.
Right.
I mean, UNC, Duke, NC State. I don't care. North Carolina Central, St. Aug, whatever. I just kind of pull for any team. I do, since I live in Raleigh, and it seems like NC State's always the underdogs.
Yeah.
I do sort of maybe pull a little extra hard for them, but I have a lot of Virginia ties. My dad went to UVA, so I often pull for the Cavaliers.
They had a little rough deal this year.
They did, but I really like the coach, Tony Bennett.
Yeah,
seems like
good
a
guy.
nice
He's
guy.
a great singer too.
Yeah, right.
So I got one more question.
Yeah.
So if you could time travel, where would you go?
Ooh, that's in North Carolina?
Wherever.
Or beyond?
Anywhere you want to go.
Boy, that's tough. Well, I like heat. I don't like cold weather, even though I grew up skiing and I love to ski. I absolutely love skiing, but I really like hot weather. So I would say the Caribbean. My wife and I spent our honeymoon in the Virgin Islands in Virgin Gorda. It's a little tiny island. and that was
We
magical.
could travel back to that.
Yeah, that was magical. But I want to go to Australia. I would love to go and watch all the tennis majors, go to Paris and watch the French Open, go to Melbourne, watch the Australian Open.
That would be cool.
Go to England, watch Wimbledon, that kind of thing.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come to Rocky Mountain and do this interview.
Well, I hope I didn't talk too much. I felt like I
You
did.
did great. I'd love to talk some more, and we'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
All right,
Good to see you
Sam,
again.
Good to see you. Thank you
And,
very much.
We'll be right back.
Metro Maintenance has provided fast, reliable services in Nash, Edgecombe, and Halifax counties for over 35 years. Metro Maintenance offers services for residential, commercial, and institutional facilities. These services include heating and cooling, electrical, plumbing, and general repairs. Our numerous years of experience, knowledge, and resources help us to accomplish our mission of serving our customers with superior service achieved through integrity and hard work. All of our work is guaranteed. For service, call 252-977-2730 or find us on the web at metro-maintenance.com. First Class Real Estate Triangle East. When buying or selling a property, think of us first.
Hey, I want to thank my special guest, Scott Mason from Tar Heel Traveler, for journeying to Rocky Mount to have a really great time with us. We could have gone for hours. We only have a short period of time. Really good show. We're going to have him back. Also, I want to mention this week's Maggie Society star from Maggie Society over in Wilson is a rescue by the name of Buckeye. Aww. Buckeye is 3 months old. He is a 20-pound cattle dog mix. He's good with kids, dogs, cats, and believe it or not, late night hosts. He's also neutered and house trained, just like me. He has the confidence and swagger of any A-lister, so make sure you contact the Maggie Society and schedule an audition for this charming pup. And don't forget, Maggie Palooza is coming up Saturday, March 4th at the Whirligig Park in Wilson, so may the 4th be with you. Go over and find yourself a dog. Thanks so much for watching again tonight. We'll see you every Thursday night at 10. Thanks for watching. See you soon.